The Hippogriff Armoured Fighting Vehicle combines speed and agility with a range of turret-mounted weapon loadouts, capable of handling almost any battlefield situation. Excellent rapid response vehicles well suited to escort duties, reconnaissance and armoured countercharges, these armoured vehicles have been the bane of foes of the Imperium several times their size. Hello there and welcome to this paint guide. If you haven't already guessed it, today we'll be painting a Hippogriff AFV in the camo pattern commonly seen used by regiments of Cadian Shock Troops. Let's waste no time and jump straight into it. All the paints we'll be using are on screen now. These are the colours of the Cadian 8th. And here's also a list of the extra equipment and brushes that we'll be using. Okay, so before we get started, our mini first needs an undercoat. For today's video, we're using Chaos Black. This will set us up nicely for that dark green base coat. And it's worth noting that we haven't glued on the wheels yet either. I've undercoated them separately with Chaos Black Spray 2, just to make painting them later a little easier. But you don't have to do this if you don't want to. With all that out of the way, let's get started. First up, let's base coat the main dark green section of the armour with Nocturne Green. Because there's lots of big flat panels here, you will need several thin layers for full coverage. The Cadian camo pattern that we see on the box art is made up of two different green tones. We've got our first one down now, and now we're going to use Waaagh flesh for the second one. Start by creating shapes that run across the whole model like so, almost like big wavy lines. Don't worry about being super neat at first, we can sort that out later. I'm starting with a larger brush, and then once I'm happy with my placement, I'm going in with a smaller one to neaten it all up. We can also pick out the wheel rims with Waaagh flesh as well. And when you're done, you should be left with something like this. Let's move on. So we're actually going to paint all the armour in its entirety before moving on. This way, when we dry brush it later, we don't have to worry about being neat over our other base coats. So with that in mind, next let's recess shade the whole tank using Nuln Oil. This will take some time, but the results will be well worth the wait and much neater than if we were to apply an all-over shade. With that dry, next we're doing something a little different and highlighting all the armour now before we've added our other base coats. And once again, that's because we're applying a dry brush, and doing it this way means we don't have to be as neat. First up, let's use Warboss Green. And then once you've dry brushed the entire tank, go in with a small layer brush and pick out the corners and very sharpest edges using Scar Snake Green. And there we are, with that done, our AFV already looks awesome, with the main armoured section of the model complete. And the tyres are looking really nice as well. Albeit a little bit messy though, so before we get back to base coating, let's use Abaddon Black to first tidy up any mistakes on the tyres and also pick out any areas where the spray may have missed. Nice and easy. For the silver details, we're using Leadbelcher. Feel free to switch this out for Iron Warriors if you want a darker silver. With that done, we can move on now to picking out the few remaining small details across the Hippogriff. There's a lot of optional stowage in this kit, so your model may be slightly different to mine. So for me, there's this crate here, which I'm actually going to pick out now with Death Guard Green, this small bag and a few straps across the model, which I'm painting with Mournfang Brown, Zandri Dust for any large stowage bags or sandbags like this one behind the turret. This is quite a thin paint, so you will need a few extra layers here. And with that done, it's onto Steel Legion Drab for any extra brown details like this spool of rope. And then finally, Khorne Red to base coat any gas canisters across the model. But with that done, that's our Hippogriff pretty much fully base coated, and we've already shaded the main section of the armour, so now we just have to shade those extra areas. So to shade everything on the AFV other than the armour, we're applying a shade of Nuln Oil. Don't worry if you make any mistakes here, just go back to your base coats to tidy up if you need to. And once you're happy with the shading on those areas, we can apply Agrax Earthshade to the base of the weapon barrels and exhaust pipes for a little bit of visual interest. With that done, our Hippogriff AFV is now fully shaded and looking awesome. It's really coming together now, there's just a few things standing between us and adding some highlights. So let's move on now to the lights and lenses. Firstly, let's base coat all these areas using Corax White. For the lights at the front of the model, you may have to go back to Leadbelcher to tidy up the cages. Once you're happy with the base coat, for all the main lenses across the model, we can use Aethermatic Blue contrast paint to tint the white. The more of this you add, the more intense the blue will become. For the light on the front of the model, let's thin down some Nighthaunt Gloom and apply it all over. This is a great way to create the effect of searchlights that aren't turned on. But if you want yours to look powered up, feel free to swap this out for a yellow contrast paint of your choice. With that done, all that's missing is the red targeting light on the turret, and for that we're using Blood Angel's Red. And blammo, this Hippogriff AFV is fully base coated and shaded, and if you're happy with it at this point, feel free to send it straight to the battlefield. But if you want to take it up a notch, stick around for some highlights. For all the silver areas, let's highlight them now using Stormhost Silver. You can dry brush this on or edge highlight it instead, or even use a mix of both methods if you'd like to. For all the brown leather straps across the model, we can highlight them now with Baneblade Brown. And with that done, we can quickly pick out any leftover stowage with a dry brush of Screaming Skull. If you apply this too heavily by mistake, just go back to your base coats to fix any mistakes. And then all that's left to highlight is the red gas tanks if there are any on your model. I'm doing this using Wazdakka Red. And there we are, our Hippogriff is pretty much complete now. All that's left is to attach the wheels, and then it's on to adding some transfers and some weathering. There's loads of options on the transfer sheet to choose from depending on which Astra Militarum regiment you've chosen. And if you do need some inspiration on where to place them, check out the box art for help. For the weathering, let's first start with a selective recess shade of Doombull Brown. Mix in some Lamia medium and then start to think about where water, muck, or grime might collect across the AFV. And feel free to go back and add extra layers if you want a stronger colour. Once you're happy with the recess shade, go ahead and apply it all over the wheels too. These areas are obviously going to be very messy, so we don't need to recess shade it here. And with that done and dry, now we can go back to Abaddon Black and apply a dry brush over the tyres. This will keep that dirty and weathered look, but will also tidy up the flat parts a little, which is exactly what we're looking for. And to finish off the tyres, let's apply another dry brush, this time using Stormvermin Fur, and this will create a neat highlight whilst also adding to the weathered effect that we've been creating. And with that done, our Hippogriff Fighting Vehicle is ready to speed onto the battlefield against the enemies of the Imperium, prepped and ready for any battlefield situation. Well, that's all from me. Thanks for watching this video. In the meantime, if you are looking for more tutorials, go straight to warhammercommunity.com for all the latest Warhammer news and content. Thanks again for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.